Can doubt destroy trust in a relationship? Darling, I'm so lucky to have you, Oleg whispered, kissing his wife on the cheek. He stood behind her, holding her close. Thank you for agreeing to go to my mother's today for an overnight stay and help her prepare for the anniversary. What would I do without you? How could I refuse? Lyudmila Nikolaevna treats me well. Besides, it's difficult for her after losing her beloved husband. She has decided to celebrate the anniversary after all. I will help her with everything I can. We will make this celebration the best so she feels that she is needed by us. Thank you, my dear. Another woman in your place would have brushed it off, but you are a true treasure. Oleg turned his wife to face him and kissed her on the lips, filling the young woman's heart with tenderness. They had been married for 5 years, but it felt like just yesterday they had said "I do" to each other and exchanged rings. Valentina loved her husband with all her heart. She felt his love in return and was happy because she was so lucky. Some friends had already divorced twice, but Valia knew that her marriage was for life. The couple wasn't in a hurry to have children yet. It was important for them to be mentally prepared first. Valentina had recently turned 26. Acquaintances said it was already late to have children, but still, coming to such a decision should be done thoughtfully, not just because someone said so. Valentina was not yet mentally ready to have a child, as it would mean restructuring her entire life. Moreover, Oleg still doubted whether he could support the whole family on his own. He was convinced that a pregnant wife should stay home from the beginning of the pregnancy, limit herself from unnecessary stress, and enjoy her position instead of working hard when her body wants to sleep or doesn't feel well. The man was actively climbing the career ladder and promised his wife that in a year, everything in their lives would definitely change for the better. Oleg was getting ready for work. He planned to take some documents home and work on them for a good part of the night to complete everything and receive a bonus. That's why he asked Valentina to help his mother. He simply didn't have time. He was looking forward not only to a good bonus, but also to training to rise to a new level. Oleg hoped to achieve the desired result. "You're such a hard worker. Sometimes I really miss your attention," Valentina always said with a smile. The woman herself worked as a teacher at the school near their house. Her husband didn't ask her to look for something better paid, saying that the most important thing was for her to enjoy her work and everything else could be earned. However, lately a nagging thought kept appearing that she was already adult and could easily become a tutor. Tutors earned quite a good income on the side, with some teachers even quitting to focus entirely on tutoring. Of course, some proudly said that it was nothing in comparison to teaching at school, considering tutoring something wrong. Valentina did not listen to them. She thought about talking to her mother-in-law and asking for her advice. There was no use talking to her own mother. She wouldn't want to listen. She had her own life. When Valentina turned 18, her mother bluntly said that she had done everything she could, and now their paths were diverging, and her daughter needed to learn independence. As a mother, she wanted to live for herself. The woman was not interested in her daughter's life, only calling on holidays to congratulate and, for the sake of formality, to ask how her treasure was doing. Valentina had gotten used to it and didn't judge her mother. She had the right to live for herself. It was just disappointing that she couldn't spend time with her mother, share her experiences, and seek advice. Before heading to her mother-in-law's country house, Valentina planned to stop by a shopping center on the way, since her husband and she still hadn't chosen a gift for his mother. Valentina intended to buy some cosmetics that once caught Lyudmila Nikolaevna's eye, but she hadn't dared to spend money on them. Also, she had seen a gorgeous illuminated tabletop mirror, and it wasn't too expensive. Who knows, maybe her mother-in-law would start taking more care of herself or realize that life hadn't stopped and try to build a relationship with someone. There were suitors at work, but she rebuffed them all. Valentina mentally reproached herself for these thoughts. And could she herself move on if something happened to Oleg? After all, she couldn't imagine her life without her husband, and partially understood her mother-in-law, who chose to remain faithful to her deceased husband, even though he was no longer by her side. Turning away from sad thoughts, Valentina went to the shopping mall. There she accidentally met her friend, who was refreshing her wardrobe. Together they went into a cafe on the 3rd floor to drink coffee and eat ice cream. Mariana, a slender blonde with a voice as clear as crystal, was for Valentina an example of beauty and an ideal. She wished she could be just like her. Valentina was not very overweight, but that's how it seemed to her. Her chestnut-colored pale hair made her unhappy, and she often thought about dyeing it blonde. Even now, looking at Mariana, Valentina caught herself thinking that she wanted to look just like her, to please her beloved man even more. "I love you and I don't want you to change," she heard Oleg's voice in her head, as if it were a reminder. He always said that when she started to complain about her appearance or expressed a desire to change something about herself. "However, I won't stop you if you decide to change something. I want you to be completely satisfied with yourself," he often added. "So, what's new with you? How are things going with Oleg?" "How are you two getting along?" asked Mariana, squinting her eyes. "It's fine," Valentina shrugged. "Well, I recently read some correspondence of my—" Her friend placed her hand to her forehead and clicked her tongue in disapproval. "In short, disaster, girlfriend. But we talked everything over, figured out what was missing in our relationship. Everything is fine now. Why keep an eye on it? I trust my husband completely. He loves me, and I love him. Where there is love, there is no room for betrayal. Oleg tries to provide me with everything I need, often gives me gifts, buys flowers." "Ha! But didn't you know that with flowers they try to cover up their mistakes and so to speak?" Mariana cut in, squinting her eyes. "Come on, flowers, gifts, that's all after they mess something up. Spending time with another woman, and then they rush to buy you jewelry or a bouquet. When my first husband, Ivan, well, you remember him, so when he gave me diamond earrings, I immediately understood. Things were bad. I looked through his phone and found evidence. So there's no point in being happy about those gifts. One should be cautious." Valentina felt a chill inside her. An unpleasant residue was left after those words. "Sorry, but I'm in a hurry," she suddenly said, stood up, and headed for the exit. As she was going down the escalator to the supermarket on the first floor, she tried to push away the intrusive thoughts. What if there's even a grain of truth in her words? Valia had never suspected her husband of infidelity. Why should she do so now? Yet a seed of doubt had still taken root. After buying everything necessary, Valentina called her mother-in-law. "I'm already leaving, but due to traffic jams, I won't arrive any earlier than in 2.5 hours. "Don't rush, Valka. I'll wait. It's no big deal," her mother-in-law replied gently. "I'm just boiling vegetables for the salad and cleaning up little by little. Thank you for not leaving me alone and for agreeing to help. Just don't overwork yourself without me, because then I won't have any work left." Valentina smiled and sat behind the wheel. The car, although bought second-hand, had never let her down. Valentina couldn't get enough of it. It was a gift from her husband. But at that moment her heart tightened uncomfortably. The words of Mariana echoed in her ears. "Did you not know that they try to cover up their mistakes with flowers?" "Nonsense," Valentina muttered to herself and drove out of the parking lot. The phone kept ringing. The woman glanced at the screen. It was her neighbor. She decided to call back once she got to her mother-in-law's. Probably she wanted to bring her pastry for a taste test again. Tatiana baked at home and often brought Valentina new recipes to hear her opinion. Would such a product sell? But now the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Valentina frowned. What if something had happened? She pulled over, turned on the hazard lights, and called her neighbor back. "Valia, thank God. I thought I wouldn't get through." Tatiana's voice sounded excited. "What happened? You're speaking so confusingly." "It happened," her neighbor replied tensely. "I would give him a piece of my mind for that." "Who, Tatiana? What's going on with you?" Valentina felt a pang of foreboding inside her, sensing something was wrong. "Not with me, Valia. If you're parked, you'd better sit down. Your husband has brought some strange woman into the apartment. She's all dolled up, and now there's music playing. You can't hear anything." Valentina's heart jolted. She felt tears rolling down her cheeks. Is this really possible? She had always trusted her husband and would never have thought he was capable of infidelity. "No, this is nonsense. It can't be," she whispered to herself. Tatiana continued, "Valia, are you sure it's Oleg? Maybe he gave the keys to someone from his friends?" This thought seemed unbelievable. Why would Oleg give someone keys to their home? Besides, he planned to work all night. But Valentina tried to find some excuse for his actions. Am I supposed to not recognize your Oleg or something? My eyesight is fine. Tetiana chuckled again. She was in high heels, holding something in her hands, but I couldn't make it out. I could be mistaken, of course, but she had her hands full, and your husband had 2 bags. Valentina didn't want to think that her husband was cheating on her, but she had to go home to make sure that it was just some misunderstanding and that her neighbor had misinterpreted things. Thank you, Tetiana. I'll think of something, Valentina mumbled, turning towards her home at the nearest turnaround. She was glad she hadn't gone far, having lingered with her friend at the shopping center. It gave her time to think. She wanted to believe in the best. Her husband couldn't betray her, as they loved each other. However, a lot indicated that Valentina was mistaken and was trusting her husband too much. She quickly wrote to her mother-in-law that the traffic jams were much more serious than she expected. Valentina reached the house, parked the car, and hurried to the apartment. Her heart was racing wildly in her chest, and something was boiling inside her. Upon opening the door, she rushed into the apartment and immediately froze at what she saw. In the hallway stood a pair of unfamiliar women's shoes, and a man rushed towards her. "Valia, why did you come back?" Oleg asked in a frightened voice, turning pale. "It just happened. On the way, I decided to turn around and kiss my husband one more time," Valentina replied, trying to maintain her calm. "And why do you look so pale?" she asked, not hiding her irritation. "Oh, nothing." Oleg scratched his head and hurried to close the door. "What are you hiding from me? I see unfamiliar shoes at the door. Who is there? Do you want to explain anything?" Her voice lost patience. "To be honest, I wouldn't want to." Oleg sighed heavily. "Is that so? I defended you, thinking you really loved me. It's a pity I was so wrong and trusted the wrong person. Valia, why do you throw around such words? It's unpleasant to hear, by the way." Oleg frowned. "I don't feel bad about the fact that you sent me to your mother while you brought your mistress into the apartment." "Where is she?" "In the living room." "Let me at least take a look at her," Valentina replied, bitterness in her voice. Valentina tried to walk past, but Oleg blocked her way. "What are you talking about? What mistress? Are you out of your mind? Why would I need someone else when I barely have enough time for you? You always complain that we spend too little time together, yet that doesn't stop you from having fun with someone else." Oleg couldn't hold back. "Fine, if you don't believe me and keep talking such nonsense, then forget it," Valentina said angrily. Oleg opened the living room door, and Valentina saw a woman sitting on the floor, blowing up balloons. The stranger was creating a white arch with balloons in the shape of flowers. "What is this?" Valentina asked, turning her gaze to her husband. "I wanted to surprise you, but you probably won't understand. Anyway, tomorrow is the anniversary of our acquaintance. Remember how I ran to buy a gift for my mom's birthday while you were working part-time in that shop during the holidays?" Oleg explained, smiling. "Well, and you agreed to go out with me after celebrating my mom's anniversary? I plan to arrange a romantic candlelit dinner for us in a nice setting. I arranged with Julia from the event agency. She was going to create all this beauty. And you talked to me about betrayal. How could I betray my beloved and only one? And Mom didn't call or warn me that you had come back. We had an agreement," Oleg said, trying to comfort his wife. Valentina burst into tears. She blamed herself for falling for someone else's gossip and allowing doubts to take root in her heart. She looked at her husband, and he held her close. "And I have another surprise for you, Valia. I got promoted at work. Now I can fully provide for our family. If you're ready to become a mom, you can quit your job at school and start preparing for the examination," Oleg said warmly. Valentina hadn't even had time to process what she heard when Julia's voice came through the phone. "If the surprise didn't work out, I'll take only half the cost from you and head home." Julia laughed into the receiver. Oleg closed his eyes, sighed, and said, "Well, now only joy remains, and we can endure everything else together. It's a pity that we couldn't do everything as planned, but what's more important is that there are no secrets between us," Oleg said while embracing his wife. The arch was almost ready, but there were still many balloons scattered on the floor. Julia quickly gathered them into a box. After receiving the payment, she wished them happiness and left. "Forgive me, you fool. I shouldn't have acted this way," Valentina whimpered. It's nothing serious. I'm even glad you checked everything after the neighbor's call instead of holding a grudge inside. By the way, tomorrow evening you would have found out who was here anyway, but the surprise didn't work out. Let's go help Mom. I don't have to do any work. I had to be a bit cunning, but now I'm free. It's a pity, of course, that with such vigilant neighbors, you can't even pull off a surprise. But what can you do? Oleg smiled. Valentina wiped her tears, kissed her husband, and promised she wouldn't doubt him anymore. Calming down and getting ready, she went with her beloved husband to help her mother-in-law, confident that she hadn't made a mistake and that she truly had a worthy man by her side.